Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Front Runners Innovate. And what you're going to see behind me right here is Front Runners Development of the Front Runners Innovate podcast. This particular podcast is the third one in a series that we're doing with LeagueMed. LeagueMed is represented here by John Gallagher, and you see it on his shirt there, and Paul Chella of KeyArcs, both of them co-founders of LeagueMed. Really happy to have you all as partners on this wonderful series aimed at bringing innovation in medical and healthcare spaces together, along with providers who have an interest of maybe investing in those innovations that make their lives easier and make the patients' lives a lot better. So here we go. We're going to start with allowing them to share a little bit more about LeagueMed. So I'm going to start with John Gallagher. If you will introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background in LeagueMed and how you and Paul came together.
My name is John Gallagher. I'm the co-founder, and CEO of LeagueMed. The origin story relates to the fact that Paul and I grew up together. We've known each other for more years than I care to count, not because they haven't been good years, just because it's a lot of years. But my background was, I was tempted by academia. I did 2 degrees in history at Princeton and Oxford, but it was a little too cloistered for me. And I found my way into finance almost by accident. But once there, I got involved in the growing alternative investment business, where I spent really all of my career until we founded this business. Focused on, hedge funds, venture capital, structured products, anything that was considered, back in the day when I began my career, sort of off-piste and unusual. They're not so alternative now, so I think they're more and more in the mainstream, and the likes of Larry Fink at BlackRock are now including them in the default portfolio, the standard portfolios. But to bring it to the present, Paul and I had complementary experiences. The market for private offerings in the United States has been much liberalized by the Jobs Act, and we saw an opportunity to put our experiences together to satisfy a need. And the need is there's extraordinary innovation in healthcare, medical science, but there's insufficient capital to bring it forward. There's also the opportunity, those opportunities that are successful are often the beneficiaries, in addition to the patient. The investors tend to be institutional, and the individual investor, the ordinary mortal, has been left out of the good fortune that follows making these investments. And so things have changed recently. We saw an opportunity to create a platform which we've just launched called LeagueMed, which is designed to finance rising medical technology companies and to source the capital not from the usual institutional suspects, but from healthcare professionals and others interested in the subject matter. And so that's what we set out to do a couple of years ago. We launched the platform at the beginning of the summer, and we'll be listing and posting our first deals right after Labor Day.
I love the way that you all also incorporate the education piece into the platform, and that's such a draw for people who are trying to keep up with the newest and the latest, not just the trends, but the innovations that are coming along. And that is why we're here. Paul, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and KeyArcs and how you are involved?
Yeah, so John and I do have a history going back to bicycles when we were kids. So that was always fun. But KeyArcs is a financial planning firm that specializes with healthcare professionals, and we work with the physician, the clinics, and hospitals. We have 3 main focus areas that we work in. One is helping doctors save, and the institutions save money, 20-30% on their ancillary spend, their disability spend. And then we show doctors how they could redeploy those savings to get bigger benefits, 30, 40, 50, 70% more disability, which doctors are interested in. And then we have a retirement planning division that we help the doctors in specifically. It's an area it's a pain point for all of us. Am I going to run out of money? Do I have enough? How much are going to leave my kids? So we kind of create peace of mind in retirement planning. And then last, we help doctors, the last of the 3 areas is we help doctors navigate, we call it life review, rescue, and revitalization on their life insurance plans. So that's what we do. And John and I, in 30 years of doing this, I know wonderful people like Mary and consultants all across the United States that focus on healthcare. So I was brought in for my areas of expertise. But when John and I looked at this 2.5, 3 years ago, it was just a perfect marriage with my connections and his vision of LeagueMed. So we're just so excited. The League is in wonderful position to help people. And I know, Michelle, your passion is making an impact for people in the future. So I think there's going to be a wonderful connection with the League. And
thank you, Paul. Thank you, John. So now we come to our guest, and this is Dr. Michelle Berry. And Dr. Michelle is the CEO and co-founder of LifeHealth, also CTI Africa. I think I have that right. And also board director for CTI Africa. And I think the interesting thing is we can go from US to global in like one fell swoop here. But before we get to what innovations that you're doing, because honestly, some of what you're doing is not only just innovative, it's disruptive, it's rare to have something that would launch in one place, but could also almost immediately be a global product or service that would make such a difference. But you've managed to pull that off. So share with us a little bit about your background and bring us up to where you are now with what you're doing in those two spaces.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be part of this conversation. So I am Michelle Berry, as you mentioned. My personal background has been a lifelong pursuit of working to empower people to take better care of themselves in some form or fashion. And so I've spent my life initially in healthcare. That's where I began. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so I was working in surgical clinics. I did a little stint in the morgue, and then I ended up jumping ship and going into functional medicine because I was curious about some of the, I would call it more ancient wisdom or traditions that were starting to come into things like chiropractor and acupuncture, naturopathy, et cetera, way back in the days when they still called it complementary alternative medicine. So went into that segment for a while. And then what I realized is that as much as I love the one-on-one connection, I really was more focused on trying to get change out to the masses. So I jumped ship academically and did my doctorate in sociocultural and medical anthropology, which is a huge mouthful. Most people have no idea what that means. My grandmother about had a heart attack when I said I wasn't going to be a doctor, but I wanted to do this other thing. But my goal was to study systems. So I'm actually a systems thinker. And I've spent my entire life working with data. I've run major data and more on the consumer side for many, many years of why people do what they do. How do they make decisions about what they are consuming, what kind of healthcare they're pursuing, how they integrate it into their lives, but also how do you make it culturally responsive? Because you can't just take a system and drop it into someone's lap and hope that it works. It usually does not. So as I started studying these things, I also realized that in my
It sounds like an indictment of American foreign policy of late. Sorry.
No politics here. No politics here. But healthcare is political, as we know, and we're actually trying to make it not so much. We are really on behalf of reaching into not just more premium types of services, but we actually specialize in underserved markets. So we specialize in the folks that are rural, that are maybe lower income, that might be disabled or living at home alone, aging in place, and maybe not so successfully. So we really focus on that in the U.S. in our own backyard as our first point. We are first and foremost a humanitarian and social impact company. We are relentless about trying to empower people with whatever tools we can find, and we look for best-in-class partners in that effort. So as such, we start patient first. And what we have ended up developing over about the last 5 years or so and are just now coming into the US market. We actually were born abroad, but I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the system is really putting a digital health wallet in the hands of every citizen we possibly can. And what that digital health wallet does is it gives them access to a variety of products and services that are meant to be hyper-personalized to the patient first. So everything from aggregating medical records under digital easy app through to accessing telemedicine, mental health tools. And we've also got some more interesting integrated remote patient monitoring technology that's automatically downloaded into the digital health wallet. So we're getting real biometrics, not something that was in the third drawer down in the bathroom that we bought at the drugstore 20 years ago, and we hope it still works. We're actually getting real data, real information. So we're getting medical records, we're getting biometric data when they opt in, and we've just integrated our e-commerce platform as well that now also brings some of the lowest cost prescription and over-the-counter types of products into that consumer's home and has an affiliate tier built into it so they can save money and make money. So at the end of the day, we are looking at solving some problems associated with not being able to take care of ourselves better under our own roof, but also our family. You can add your family into the digital health wallet. We're going to look at fur family, cats and dogs, and whatever animals are also part of our families as an extended service to that over time. But the goal of this is we have some marvelous data collection tools is the way I think about them, because I'm kind of got a data brain. But at the end of the day, all that data is very holistic. There's not very many platforms, if any, out there that truly look at medical records data, look at biometric data, and also then consumer data. What are we doing that we report differently on survey tools and instruments? I ran research for a long time, and I can tell you that what's in people's cabinets and whatever cupboards and on their counters, what they're taking is not actually what's really happening. So we're looking at the consumer data through a new lens to take all that holistic data and create bundled health solutions. So although we have a marvelous modular tech stack of multiple tools, and we have even more in other markets that need more, the whole goal for us here in the US in our own backyard is to bridge that gap. We really want to bring that power back in. Somehow along the way, we sort of outsourced all of our control to the industry. And so we're trying to bring some of the industry into the home so that that's a more seamless bridge between systems. But more importantly, we want the family system to work. We're working to keep people at home, and that I can actually help monitor that situation. So, I've got a mom who's, she's going to be 80, and she lives 45 minutes away, but I have no idea what medication she's taking right now. I have no idea when her next mammogram is or how her blood pressure is looking, that she should be monitoring. And if I need to triage her care or make a decision as her POA, I can't do it with any level of data or real-time information. I've got to go hunt and pack, go find the picture of the med she's been taking that's on this, pad and the paper in the kitchen, and hope that it's right. And then if I have to triage her to assisted living or skilled nursing, hopefully not. My goal is to keep her home until her last breath, which is what she wants. But that gives me the tools to be able to do that at a distance. But I can also track my 17-year-old, and he's now starting to be his own healthcare provider. Just went to the dentist this morning, and he checked himself in, did his own files, and said, has our insurance changed? So I've got another generation now to what if we don't have to build this for them? And he can then track and trace me, whether I'm getting old and I can't take care of myself, which will happen eventually. But also, I want to retire soon and I want to travel. And what's going to happen if I'm, in whatever, Portugal or something, and I have an emergency. He'll know exactly where all my information is, and he can share that because it's portable and interoperable no matter where I am in the world. So that's what we've been building here. Also looking for ways to incentivize patients to take care of themselves. We know that money talks. So we're constantly looking at innovative new ways to use our data and our partnerships to do that. We are an IBM partner. We're a gold partner and climbing very quickly to the next level of platinum. We work with them very intensively off the Watson X platform. And so all the data that's coming in and that will be coming in a much higher volume here pretty quick is actually on behalf of creating what we call VIMA, which is a virtual intelligent medical assistant. So it's really a companion for the patients, but it's also going to be a smart system that will also speak to the providers. It'll speak to the payers and ultimately to the facilities. So we're really looking to bridge the gaps in efficiencies, take off some of the really mundane tasks or questions that are things that really create, I would call them log jams in the system, or they aren't reimbursed, but they're necessary. So we're trying to take some of the basics off, and then over time we'll have a much more sophisticated, advocate, assistant, concierge style AI aspect to our platform.
Sure. Go ahead, Paul. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say the healthcare systems must love this concept, the ones that come across it, right? For people, you must be minimizing the recurrence, right? Coming in.
Yes, the goal with in some hospitals like and some don't, but our goal is I don't want you to have medical records. Ideally, we want prevention, wellness, insurance, like employer insurance programs or 55 plus. Put this under the homeowners, dues and really prevent these things from happening in the first place. But yes, you're right. We are trying to reduce the readmissions, and so for certain, from a certain perspective, that is 100% what we're working to do.
At the same time, aren't you also making it easier to serve people remotely?
Exactly. Yes.
You keep them in the house, you have all this data, you communicate over this medium or something like it, and you can diagnose, treat, assuming nothing catastrophic or traumatic.
Well, and even
I
in the
suspect
catastrophic or traumatic, we have partnerships with transportation specialists, with large brands that you recognize that are medically trained. We have a
Right.
one partner in particular that knows what to do if someone's in a walker or wheelchair or unsteady on their feet or really
Yeah.
feeling awful after chemo. They're trained to bring that
Right.
transportation. So those are the partners that we have. So if there is an
Right.
emergency, like I just had to take my aunt who's stage 4 cancer. She was under the Epic umbrella. When she said, call me, she said, I've got a horrible fever. I'm dizzy. Something's not right. I drove down, picked her up, and she said, I don't want to go back to that hospital. They did me wrong last time. I hate that hospital. I'm not going to die there. Take me someplace else. So I took her across town to the other one, and guess what? They didn't have any of her records, not one thing. No one had her prescriptions. No one could get her records. The oncologist didn't have the up-to-date records. The caregiving team is a group of lovely women, but they're not trained. They're like got a little bit of training for, falling down or something, but they didn't have everything. And if I would have had this program in place, I would have expedited her admissions process. It would have been far more accurate care. They would have had the information to discharge us with the right medications that they couldn't figure out and had to make 4 phone calls from, to solve. And at the same time, as her power of attorney and having to make life-threatening decisions, I would have had the information to have the comfort level to even try and make that decision real time when they're saying, do you want to put her on hospice or do you want to do, this particular procedure? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what her history is. I don't know what happened. So we're trying to, solve the problems, not just for the in-home or prevention side. We're also trying to bridge that gap to say, as soon as they need to transition to the ER or admit to a new place where it's, different environment, that everything is under one roof. And I know I've gone through this repeatedly. I did with my dad with pancreatic cancer and 23 doctors and 13 facilities over 13 months. It was a nightmare of Excel spreadsheets and whatnot. And we lost out on clinical trials. His care management was me. It was horrible. It was a terrible experience. And that was not good for him or me or my mom. But, at the end of the day, if it's happening to me over and over, and it's the same thing, I feel like I'm on Groundhog Day, it just keeps happening. If it's happening to me repeatedly in my lifetime as a caregiver, from, memory care with my grandma all the way through to where I am today with, stage 4 cancer with Aunt Grace, that is happening to people every single day around this country, constantly. And it does not need to be happening, not with the technology that we have today, not with the tools that we have, not with the interoperability that we're putting in place. The permissions, the approvals, the processes for that. There's just so much we can do now that we couldn't even do 6 months ago, frankly. I mean, the partners that are coming out of the woodworks now to collaborate with us are so high end and so sophisticated that's where when we go to these other countries, like where we came out of, for Africa, for example, you're completely leapfrogging the mess and decentralization that we have in the United States. And you're in greenfield territory, and they are going to get the best healthcare systems possible because all of it is going to be talking to each other. It's integrated, it's patient first, and it's also paying attention to what the industry actually needs to create an ecosystem that is very powerful, and it's all connected and things are talking to each other. So that's going to be a game changer. And I think that's where people don't think about, invest in Africa or emerging countries, they shy away from it. It's like, no, actually, that's exactly where you should be investing because
they've been cautioned by the example of the United States, which says you couldn't design a worse system.
Well, and then we say that, the only reason that we have what we have right now and that we can kind of now launch in the US market, we have our own Africa situation in our own backyard. It's just we think we're in control, but we're not. And we could not have designed that if we started here thinking, what do we do in the US? Because we would not have come to the same conclusion. We would have had very pragmatic, well, what about the insurance? What about this? And, we would have been.
Well, it's all remedial work, isn't it? Right? You're addressing an incumbent situation, which is a mess, as opposed to what would we do with a clean slate?
Correct. So we got to have the clean slate and we got to test it out. And guess what? The same thing we're doing here, it's same tools, different language. It's in Swahili, in Kenya, but we're still trying to empower people in their home and the people that are caring for them that aren't necessarily part of the hospital, clinic, facility, provider network. They're village health workers that have minimal training. They are invested in their communities. So we're really looking at community health modules that bring that care back into our own control, but we're trying to help the providers have that real-time information, better efficiencies. We want to save them the stuff they don't want to be doing anyway, and they don't need to be doing. But also, how do we better empower those people in between, whether that's the Visiting Nursing Association or caregiving networks, or it's, the person who's at the admissions, waiting to figure out how to expedite an intake instead of 2 hours with a binder and a pen, which is exactly what I just went through multiple times. So, there's different ways to think about the impact or the outcome of what we're all aspiring to do. But it's straight up is, one, it's just saving more lives quickly and as many as possible, but also bridging the painful gaps of lack of information, lack of connectivity, lack of community, lack of finances, mobility. So, these are all real problems.
I would think your work in the US would be particularly of the moment, given that rural hospitals and networks are back on their heels and going out of business. And
Yeah.
this be a way to, can't address the whole situation, but at least ameliorate the situation.
Not yet, but we're working on it. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the goal is there are not enough hospitals. There are not enough doctors. There are not enough nurses. I've got a niece who's going into, University of Michigan nursing school. And I'm like, you go, girl. Okay. Because
Paul's got a nurse as a daughter.
Yeah. I mean, we need more, right? I mean, and I feel a
Yes.
little guilty that I jumped ship on that one, but I'm here to make bigger, I need to help the nurses and the doctor. I'm here to help the systems. So it's somebody has to do that job. It's not always, we're frontiers on that. So you get shot at a little bit or a lot, but at the end of the day, it needs to get done. But, but there's not enough and we have shortages and there will be the next pandemic. And that's what we're also, the way the data is coming in is we have the ability to really hone in on emergency preparedness, pandemic preparedness, facility preparedness. Do you have the right vaccine, drugs, RPM devices, the best scanner, all these things to create an ecosystem that is more responsive, more flexible, and also more lucrative. And we're also working through platforms and I guess partners that we're choosing to integrate into our digital health system. We're looking at the ones that are also helping the doctors make money. So even on the e-commerce side, we're partnering with people who are really trying to think about, how do you bring revenues, new forms of revenue in, whether that's to the patient themselves directly or to the provider. And so we're really trying to take care of the full ecosystem. We're patient first and humanitarian first. So it's about the lives and the humans, at the end of the day. But we also understand that everybody needs to also have a financially viable way forward. So, right now it's not been the case. We're all very hamstrung by the way the system's been built. And I don't know how, that was a conversation I was having with a major hospital this morning. It was like, well, what about all the payers? What about Medicaid and Medicare and how's this going to work? And, there's bigger
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, there's bigger powers to play. So right now, to be honest, that's not the battle that we're fighting out of the gate in the US. Right now, what we're looking to do is work for employer insurance programs. We're looking for TPA. We're looking for partners that are in 55 plus communities where you can tuck those into homeowner dues. We're also looking at some level of membership type scenarios with, major organizations that are on that 55 plus or even 40 plus scale where I'm happy to pay 20, 50, even $100 a month if I needed to have that access to take care of my mom and or take care of Grace. I mean, that would come out of her, out of her estate to, make sure that her care is complied, so there's a lot of different ways to get us to market and get us into positions so that we can have a really robust set of case studies, because at the end of the day, the only way we're going to have any influence whatsoever on policy is actually showing that it works. And so right now we need partners to come in and help us find the right network, the right opportunities, so that we've got a couple of just killer case studies that we can then take back. And we have the relationships with the government officials. We're talking to them. We're meeting with them in DC. We're having these meetings, with the people who make those policies and decisions, and they're looking to us for some of those answers and solutions. But at the end of the day, no one wants to go first. Nobody ever wants to go first, but everyone's, happy to follow on after the fact.
Number 10.
Exactly.
Number 10.
But we need number 1, 2, 3 right now who are bold enough and see the need and recognize that this is not we're not selling golf balls. It's not widgets. We're in human capital. We are in very complex environments and with complex systems, but we've been at this now for 5 years. We've been, in very tough situations, and we've managed to get through it and show that we can make it work in all kinds of different scenarios. So, that's sort of the life cycle of where we are. And now we're ready to kind of come out. We're having our coming out party. Thank you, Mary. This is where it starts. And so, I would love nothing more than to be connected to a large provider network and have some brave, bold, patient folks who are in it for the next generation as well. I mean, this is generational change that we're after. This isn't like just solving something for next year or next 10 years. It's generational, and it's global. We're not a US company. We're US based, and we are, that's the funding mechanism is US, but we have reach in the UK. We work with the NHS. We work in Africa. We're across, 4 or 5 countries now, working with governments, large NGOs, private sector, medical device manufacturing teams. So everything that's coming together, it's there. We have 25 plus signed agreements. We're slated right now. If everything goes according to plan, we should be able to reach upwards of 10 million people over the next year or more. So we're, that's a pilot mode. The actual number is in the hundreds of millions, and quickly. That's endorsements with UN, Vatican. We've got all kinds of different things. It's not a religious initiative, nor is it political, but you need to have all the players who are in the ecosystem joining hands and willing to figure it out.
Well, the faith-based community has their hands on a lot of the types of markets that you're looking for, especially in foreign countries.
They occupy a huge percentage of healthcare in rural areas and especially in emerging nations. So we work with global companies or global institutions, NGOs that are core partners, and we've been at this for several years, getting all the things in order for it to become real. Yeah.
So is there a technology product platform aspect that pulls us all together? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So what it is it's a series of apps. We're SaaS. So we're Ninja SaaS. We are built to scale. We're built to be digital. So we're not in logistics. We're not in hardware. We partner with those folks and make sure that we've got the right integrations in place, and they make sure that RPM gets to the patient or whatever. We don't have our own doctor networks. We are straight up SaaS. So we've got multiple interlocking apps that are modular, and each of those platforms can either be separated or they can be tied together. So if we take the entire tech stack and take all the different apps and systems together, we have a plug and play for universal healthcare, quite literally, for places that have nothing. So we can come in and get the consumers signed up, get the telemedicine going, get the EMR in place, get the hospital management information system in place, and then all that data on the back end for community health. So we've got the whole ecosystem there. But in places, some places they already have telemedicine and they've got a great network. And so we bookend, we take the front end and we take the back end and we make them better. So even I think teams that you would think are our competition, they're actually more our partners and cooperative, in that we can help elevate them at the same time, help ourselves figure out how to scale and get to market more quickly. So yeah, it's all SaaS, and we intend on being SaaS, and the AI and the data is really the biggest asset that we'll have at the end of the day. Right now it's the tech because it's pulling all the information in, but at the end of the day, the most valuable piece we have at the end of the day will be the data, and good quality data. As someone who ran a research firm for 13 years for global companies on health, I can tell you that it's good data in, good data out, and the AI is only going to be as good as the people who are building it and the data that we have to work with. And so we are really just laser focused on making sure that we're asking the right questions, getting the right inputs, innovating around the AI, the innovations around the AI, and how much better can we make it, and AI for good in particular, because I think a lot of people are worried about AI taking over the world, which is a legitimate concern. But, at the end of the day, we're also trying to sort out, how do we be responsible stewards in that process. And that means you need to talk to the communities that you're serving. And there's a lot of issues around sovereignty. There's issues around access, exposure, and most importantly, relevance. Who cares if it's AI all over the place? I mean, they can go to chat and get information, but they can't go to chat. Chat's not going to know all this information that we're going to have about their health, all stored in one spot that's easy to grab and analyze, so that we can help them get to that clinical trial or help them get the right medication and not have an adverse reaction because someone didn't know they were on this, or there's a lot of things we can solve for that are immediate. But yeah, we're meant to be trying to be ninja, trying to get to market as quickly and easily as we can with as minimal internal resources, but really good resources. But it's a lot about the partnerships that we've worked really hard to secure.
Fantastic. Michelle, we're going to end this up a little bit with just a capsule of the partnerships that you're looking for, because I think that's key to what we're going to be doing here with LeagueMed. And then I'm going to go back to John and Paul and see if they have any final words to share with us about LeagueMed. So Michelle, restate again what you feel like you need to kind of move you forward right now, because you haven't launched yet, right? So get us into that place where we can start thinking about how to help.
Like next week, we might. We're right in that. Okay. Like the integrations are being done and all these things. What we're looking for right now is a couple things. One is we are looking for, I would say, paid contract opportunities. We don't need to necessarily have the giant, big ones, where we would actually maybe like to have a small to mid-size in a couple of different areas that are related to the verticals we want to serve. So like I said, 55 plus communities, maybe groups that are more along the lines of IHS, veterans, unions. So all the TPAs, anything that's on that employer and program, because we've got some beautiful programs designed that are really the benchmark for not just the empowerment and prevention side and saving them money on behalf of these businesses or these communities by not losing their resident or not losing their patient or their employee to sickness or, whatever. We're also trying to figure out how can they, empower them to take care of their own parents, right? So we're offering, I would say, more interesting tools. If you're an employer, it's not just saying, here, we want you to have the best life possible for you and your kids and your house. We're also saying, and we want to help you take care of your parents, because the reality is that you're gone mentally or physically, possibly far more in trying to transition your aging parents into whatever stage of life they're in, than you are probably taking your kid to the dentist or, for an ear infection. So there's certain ways we want to set that up. So we're looking for those pilot opportunities so that we have those killer case studies. So that's one. The other is that we're always open to looking at how to innovate for solving other problems like around insurance. So if we've got a group that wants to double down on the big insurance problem, and has a way to help expedite our learning curve. We don't have time to sit around and become insurance experts. We're not going to. But what we need is someone to really easily and quickly point out what are the problems that need to get solved, how fast, and what can we do with information data we're collecting, but also with the AI to try and start chipping away at what is becoming a crisis. Those are some of the other areas. And then, of course, the funding. Right now we're looking for the runway to execute. We're 100% execution. It's a fairly low risk investment in terms of the innovation that's going to come is going to be client driven. It's not going to be us. It'll be paid for. And we also are in an aggressive go-to-market phase right now with our partners at IBM. So we're actually out there getting ready to sponsor Tech Exchange as a partner there. We've got podcasts and webinars and things launching, and a lot of PR starting to happen on our partnership with them. So we need some runway to just absolutely nail execution on not just the US market, but if folks are interested in the global side, we can have that conversation too. We've got a pilot right now, like I said, serving about 10 million people initially through 7 states. All the paperwork signed, it's done. They're literally just looking for the funding to kick it off. And it's already been endorsed by UN, Vatican technology team, all sorts, the Federal Ministry of Health. So we're looking at launching some of those products but again, we just need a little bit of runway to spark that. But that opens up a door for serving 220 million people in one country. That's growing. These are, you're unlocking multi-billion-dollar opportunities on a very, short timeline. And we're open to debt funding and or equity funding with the right partners. And I'd love to have strategic partners. All of the partners to date have not necessarily come out of the health world or health innovation world. They've come more from commercial industries like real estate, for example. So this is, right before a Series A moment. And so strategic partners that have networks, that have intelligence, that maybe even want to get a little more involved than less, we welcome that, not necessary. We've got great advisors around us, but we're happy to have that level of intelligence and understanding of what this is and what maybe we're not thinking about, what's next. And so we invite that always, smart people always welcome. So that's, I think those are the main things.
Okay.
So just, great to be out in the world and and however we can help you guys. Maybe there's, I don't know, maybe there's things we can, look at.
Yeah, well, I was just going to get you there, but I've already written down 3 names I'm going to send this interview to when we finally get it published.
Oh,
so
good.
this is good.
Aw, thank you.
But I do think that probably John will speak to something you might be able to do for them, because you mentioned you were going to get into podcasts and webinars, and that might be speaking to something that he's always interested in, which is more educational opportunities. I saw Paul writing down some things, and I could see his wheels turning because you were speaking his insurance language. So just I want you to know, I'm sure the sparks were flying there, but I want to leave it with Paul and John, either one of you or both of you, whichever one that wants to go first. Just share a little bit at the very end here about LeagueMed and how people get involved.
Go ahead, John.
Well, it's easy to get involved in LeagueMed. The platform is now up and running, leaguemed.com. Registration is free. Excuse me. We have a couple of incentives for people to join. We have an excellent benefit program, which offers discounts on travel, entertainment, electronics, and all manner of products and services. We have a continuing medical education program for those who have to maintain licenses. We cover 3 subject areas in terms of content. One is the business of medicine, broadly described. So many of the issues that you were just speaking to, Michelle, and others. Innovation ecosystem, what's happening out there? Where's healthcare going? Where is the innovation? Who are the leaders behind it, institutionally, personally? And then some education about alternatives, because at the end of the day, we're a financing platform. And what is the point we all know what the point is for a company's point of view to raise capital. But what is the point for an individual investor? And what role does it play? What place does it assume in their portfolio? So a little bit of education about that. So again, the invitation is, I think, a rich one. The offering we make to begin the relationship with the member is free, and we hope they'll find something that's interesting and ultimately rewarding.
Well said.
Paul, you got something to say at the very end here?
I think, one of the things the league we're always looking for is state-of-the-art content, and I think, Michelle, you have rich content and things that people will be interested in. So we too are looking for strategic partners like yourself and maybe some of your colleagues. So I think we should expand on that conversation. I think there's a whole world of opportunity for us. So that's all I want to add for now.
Yeah, I want to just put an exclamation point on what Paul just said, which is it's really a tribute to Paul that other as I said earlier, other companies doing like things are just kind of here's deals, you have money, have at it. And we leaned in, as Mary said at the outset, with education and an invitation to conversation in a way such as you can sustain in this meeting we're using today. And so, as Paul said, speaking with people who are thinking about problems and trying to address them in a large way, like yourself, Michelle, we want to, apart from transacting, we want to bring your story, your business forward, and the way you're addressing these problems, which are going to resonate with a lot of people, as you know. So, we could definitely expand upon that following this conversation.
I would love to do that. Yeah, I think that the content is kind of key, right? Because there's a lot of content out there, and I think when you start talking about tech or innovation, the mindset is to slip into the tech, and we all of a sudden we're talking about, well, where are you hosted, and where is it?
Right.
It becomes that kind of a conversation, and we lose sight of the fact that it's very real world human problems that we've pretty much most of us, if at this age in life, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for any of y'all, but I know where I'm at in life, and if it's I'm in it, it's happening, and I'm seeing it, and so it's it's a very common problem that I think that we tend to sort of normalize, and so the content conversation is part of it's cultural. Because you can create as many innovations as you want, but our culture also needs to change to some extent, and we're a cross-cultural community here, especially in the US. So it becomes an interesting dance on the why. Who cares? What's it for? And what kind of education is it? Education or information, or and how is it being sent out? That's something I'm always a little obsessed with. And because we are in the conversations that we're in, we're also seeing best in class technologies. So our ability to be a bit of a launch pad for some rip roaring tech. I mean, we could sit around and have a completely different podcast about the tech partners that are coming to us that we're discovering a best in class next generation scanner that is history making, or a handheld, breast cancer early stage detection device that one little nodule can, do a scan on 500 women in one fell swoop. And, it's just, these things are all happening. And so we're very aware of those. And so for us to also try and bring that conversation forward on behalf of things that we think are important, and maybe they're not always 100% into our ecosystem, but we can also help get that conversation started and present some more opportunities that might be interesting to your community, but it's part of a bigger conversation. There's a bigger conversation about how these things are being designed, and that's where, for us, the AI ethics is also really a big piece of this. Is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And right. The human component and who's behind it is going to matter far more than it ever has on anything we've ever done in our lifetimes. So that, those conversations are, I think, more interesting than, coding. Yeah. Run a tech company. People think I run a tech company. I'm like, no, not really. Like, I don't want to talk about coding. I don't want to talk about hosting. I don't want to talk about any of that. That's
a means to an end.
It is. They're tools, and they're interesting to certain people. But for those of us who are in our hearts healers, providers, caregivers, reasons that people went to medical school, reasons they got into this industry, which is not always the funnest place to be. In fact, it's very challenging, and it's gotten so much worse. How do we still remember our why? Why are we here in the first place? And then are there some tools that actually take away some of the stuff that's the crap that we didn't want to do in the first place, but we just got used to having to do it? But it's not rewarding. It's not really helping at the end of the day. It's not paid for. How do we shortcut that? And the more we understand that from your content, it's just like us doing research with your community, that's going to be a groundswell of information where we actually have the resources and the teams to build that and make it almost a co-designed process with LeagueMed of, are we really solving the right problems? Not just because it lives in my head or my partner Michael's head, but that it's actually the real pain points. And those might not have anything to do with insurance. It might have everything to do with insurance. And that's why I'd like to dive around more.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, I'd like to dive around more on that.
That's why we're here. Well,
Paul's
thank
your
you,
man.
Ryder, if you're listening to this, because honestly, kiddo, you put together quite a group of people here. So we appreciate that so much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul, very much for being here and being a partner for this wonderful conversation. And Michelle, Dr. Michelle Berry, I love it. I love all that you're doing. You know that. I have even some more people in mind other than the ones I just wrote down to send this interview to, which is great because it gives the information right off bat. They can listen to it while they're driving and that sort of thing. So I appreciate you very much sharing that information with us and all that you're doing, because the heart is very much there. And same thing with LeagueMed.com. So make sure you go there and visit, and be sure to click into the membership because it's free. And we definitely want you to have access to the content and to the conversations that we're having right now, because you can already see partnerships forming. And that's what this is all about. So thank you again. And until next time.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary.